Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're looking around the globe in very dynamic societies, the ones that are actually taking the leadership role for the environment, for economy, and also civil society development. We're going to be focusing on the country of Indonesia and the work that's going on, and looking specifically at the forest, the water, and the environment, and the impact that that is actually having. And I have sitting right beside me one of the experts from that very beautiful country. This is Lismawati. She goes by Lisma, so I'll be calling her that. Lapasi. She is Environmental Ambassador for the Indonesian Green Action Forum and founder and director of what's called Triple E Eco English Education. So Lisma, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're glad to have you here. And we want to come up with some of these slides that we have here, because this is the country of Indonesia and also its location within Southeast Asia. So if we can bring up this first slide here and talk about, but tell us a little bit about the beauty of your area, the Nantau rainforest and your own home state.
Yeah, so I'm coming from a place called Gorontalo Province, one of the big island in Indonesia. So it's called Sulawesi Island. And it has a rainforest called Nantau Forest. It's a nature reserve located in my province. And it has a lot, some of endemic animals which you cannot find anywhere else in the world. And it also a place where people around the forest earn living. So it's very important for people around the forest to keep that forest.
Now, what's so unique about your area? There's something wonderfully unique about your location. It's a divide between what?
It's unique because of it's a transition place between Asia and Australia. It's called Wolosin. So the endemic animals that this forest has is very unique. You cannot find it anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I tell you, it's absolutely fantastic. And we're going to come up with some of the scenes from your area. But what is the importance of the forest that you have there? Because it's unique from a number of different perspectives, but also the forests throughout Indonesia are critically important as well.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, it's the livelihood that this forest provides for people around the forest. Besides that one, it also provides us with water, trees, and foods. So it's very important for us.
Yeah, it's almost like the center of the universe and the staff of life actually comes out of this forest area. And you're very much involved in all that because you're working with the local community, you're working with the schools and all that. Why do you think it's so important that the citizens, regardless of age, be involved in knowing and understanding the importance of the Nantau rainforest?
They have to understand that this Nantau forest is important for them because it provides livelihood for them, and also it provides life. I mean, here life is universal. For example, it provides water, the food, and also the oxygen for them. We cannot alive if we have no oxygen, no water, no food, and this forest provides us with this.
In the Western Hemisphere, many people think of the Amazon basin and the importance as far as what you're talking about, as far as purifying the water, holding the soil, cleaning the air, and all the things that goes on around the Amazon basin. But actually, Indonesia it really is, in some ways, as larger than what's going on in Brazil. And at the same time, it's having the greatest loss as far as all the trees and the vegetation in the area. So what's the impact of this?
The impact of deforestation that's going on in our forest is people suffered with the drought, and so it's a big problem and top environmental issues going on in our forest, in our land. So for example, right now there is a top environmental issues that makes my president went back earlier to our country, visiting the United States last week. It's the bushfires, environmental issues that going on right now, and these bushfires give bad impact to most of the Southeast Asian regions. So yeah, it gives a lot of bad impacts towards our country and also towards the world.
Yeah, because even with the burning that's going on, it's just like Australia with a 4-year drought. You've had about 2-year drought in Indonesia, so it really has a huge impact on your area, but also any of the smoke that's coming from the fires or the dust that's coming off of the Australian continent actually circles the globe within about 24, 48 hours. So it really does have a worldwide impact. But when you look at this photograph, this is from your area. This is absolutely gorgeous. You see the lush greenery and all that. The people that live in your area, what are they doing to protect the forest?
Well, some of the people protect the forest, but some destruct it. That's the fact that I am sad about. So some of the good people, they protect this forest by blocking the destruction that comes out from the industry and also from the company that wants to take benefit of the forest itself. But it's not enough because, you know, the forest is so big. It's around 32,000 hectares, which is 79,000 acres.
Which is really a huge area.
Yeah, right. So that's why in some points of that forest, we cannot protect the forest itself, but in some part, it's still pristine.
Yeah, well, you're looking at this photograph here with the river flowing through this area. I mean, it's absolutely pristine, and it's something that really is a heritage of all the world, not just Indonesia itself. And so you really do have a very beautiful country. And you have, as you talked about, this very unique animals and insects, even the herbs that grow out of the forest area. So this is really, in many ways, it's a treasure trove, as we said earlier, as far as the whole world is concerned. So as far as the animals, what is being done to try to protect them?
There is an organization called Nantu International Foundation, and it has done a very great job for the last 20 years to protect these endemic animals in our forest. So, for example, like the endemic animals are dwarf buffalo, here it is, and also big deers, tarsiers, and some others. So what they do is patrolling the forest and keep monitoring the destruction activities going on in that forest, and they try to make some law enforcement to put this destructor to the jails if they violate the rules of the nature reserve itself. So they haven't done a great job so far.
Now, looking at the deforestation that's going on in your area, and of course this is some of the fires that we're talking about, and like in many countries, actually in the cold north where they have the peat, and this is something where if it starts burning into the soil, it can just burn, literally smolder for years and years. And so we're looking at some of that right here. So what is being done to try to put out those fires, and what kind of impact does it have as far as the local livelihoods, not just the air and the soil and the water pollution, but as the impacts as far as the local incomes?
So the cause of the bushfires in our forests, specifically in Kalimantan and Sumatra, because Nantu Forest right now remains pristine, despite the fact that there is more activity that distract this forest. So talking about the bushfires, the cause of the bushfires in Kalimantan and Sumatra, it's because of the slash and burns activity that's going on for such a long time, from 1999, and because of the peatlands. So the forest itself sits in the peat area, so that's why the bushfires is not easily going away because of the peat lands. And it gives bad impact towards all of the across the countries, including to my province. So even though it's far away from our place, our province, we still have this bad impact from the bushfires going on in Kalimantan and Surabaya and Sumatra.
Well, and also too, it goes into the large cities,
right.
You know, like Jakarta, which is the capital city, Yogyakarta, which is kind of the royal city, if you will, from many generations past. But also, if you look at this is some of the areas where they're putting in the palm oil and
right.
other kinds of crash crops. And so looking at this is something that really it's widespread as far as what's going on in the area. But at the same time, you have a rapidly expanding population. You have one of the largest populations, you know, on the planet as far as a country is concerned. So how do you strike that balance between the environment and economy and civil society so that people do have livelihoods, but at the same time you can try to protect the environment?
So the government has done a great job. So we share a lot of things together, so we don't have problem in sharing between economics and between this large population and the less of natural resources that can provide food for a lot of people in our country. So far we're fine.
So in other words, you're trying to strike that proper balance where the governments, both the local, provincial, and the national, is working with the NGOs, private business, in trying to strike this balance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I tell you, it's just amazing what's going on there. And so we're going to go out with this. What do you see for the development of the Nantu rainforest, say, over the next 5, 10, 15 years? We have to be quick. We only have a few seconds.
I see that this forest will remain pristine in the upcoming 5 or 10 years because of the great job that has been done by Nantu International Foundation, and I think our forest is going to be fine.
That's fantastic. This is Lismawati Lapasi. She's the environmental ambassador for Indonesia as we create the Emerald Planet. See how easy that was?
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfrip@aol.com.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and Reading is Fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we're looking for those best practices that actually can help as we go to a planet of 9 billion people by 2050. And so as we are looking around the globe, we're looking across 144 countries. And one of those is going to be to the country of Indonesia. I have someone sitting right beside me that is one of the experts as far as Indonesia is concerned. And we have one of the mangrove groves that will come up on the slides here momentarily to show you some of that area. So I have right beside me, this is Lismawati. She goes by Lisma. And Lapasi, she is Environmental Ambassador for the Indigenous Green Action Forum, and also she's the founder and director of Triple E Eco English Forum and Education. And also we'll be having someone coming in by Skype in the next few minutes. This is Rahman Dako, who is a founder of the National Resources Management Advocacy Network. And so as soon as he comes in, we'll be there. Lisma's with me as our special guest here in the studio. Mr. Dako, are you with us?
Hello, yes?
Yes, there you are. Welcome all the way from Indonesia.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We're glad to have you, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but we have one of your mango groves that you've been working on for a number of years to protect and expand here. But tell us a little bit about your organization, this Natural Resources Management Advocacy Network. What is it, its mission, and what are some of the things it's been doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, our organization is a very local organization. We work in the province.
Yeah, I think we're going to lose him. Tell us a little bit about, Lisma, if you don't mind, about this organization, the Natural Resources Management Advocacy Network that Mr. Dako was working on.
So it's actually an organization founded by Mr. Rahman Dako himself, and this organization is more focused on the project of mangrove around Tomini Bay and around Gorontalo. And so far, this organization has done a very great job by protecting the mangrove forest around Gorontalo, especially for the mangrove forest around Tomini Bay.
Yeah, I tell you, it's really fantastic what he's doing, because this is really a national and international model program, because he's not only just protecting the mango forest, but all the fisheries that go on around the mango forest, and also to help to slow down some of the storm surge that comes on the area, which washes away the topsoil. And we have some photographs that was been provided by Mr. Dako as we try to get him back on Skype, but this is absolutely a beautiful area. Lisma, tell us a little bit about it. It looks like we have a village in the background. Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here.
Okay, so it's one of the villages located in my province, in Sulawesi Island, in Gorontalo province, and this forest is this mangrove forest is located in one of the bays in Gorontalo. It calls Tomini Bay, as I mentioned earlier. So the people live in this area. Their mainly livelihood is from the sea around them itself. Like for example, they are fishermen. Their livelihood is fishing the fish and on the sea, and also they are, as I know, they also take some of the food from the sea itself. So.
Yeah, and also too, this is something I'm sure they use the land as far as growing the fruits and vegetables that they have.
Right.
So they really are living, in some ways, a very pristine life out in this particular area. Now, looking at this particular village, is this something that you would see throughout this area? Is this typical, or how special is this type of village?
This is a typical village in Gorontalo area. So some of the place in Gorontalo, they live on the surface of the water. I mean, they are living in the middle of the sea, and they, like I said earlier, that their main livelihood is from the sea itself.
I'll tell you, this is a beautiful area. Now, what's going on here? I know that this is something, even though we're still waiting to get Mr. Dako back, that you've actually been involved in some of these activities.
His activity is not part of my activity because I am more concerned about conservation education, and his field is more about conserving the mangrove forest. So, but I know some of the work.
What is going on here?
So it's planting mangroves nearby the along the coastal area in Tomini Bay.
Now, again, what is the purpose of planting these new mangrove trees?
To protect the what is that, the it's like when the disaster happened, so the mangrove itself will protect our land from the sea, from the floods and
from the floods and also the storm surge. Mr. Dako, I think you're back again with us, audio.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're glad to have you back, and Lisma is doing a fantastic job giving us some information about your work and your organization. And right now we have the scene of the gentlemen that are planting the mango trees as you're replenishing and expanding the forest. Tell us, what is the purpose of planting these mango trees?
Yeah, actually the mangrove is very important. Hello?
Keep talking.
Yeah, hello.
Keep talking,
yeah,
please.
Mangrove is very important for the community in the coastal area. Mangrove provide food, livelihood for the coastal community, and also protecting people from the wind, disaster, and everything. It's also give them medicine, or they use it as medicine and everything for their life. So actually mangrove is everyday's life of the part of the life of the coastal community. Yeah, where's also fish and every coastal flora and fauna also live there.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and also it's very important because many countries, as you know, in Southeast Asia have destroyed many of the mangrove groves, and now they're suffering from, the ill effects of climate change. And it looks like you're actually going the reverse, where you're actually expanding the mangrove forest. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, our problem now is how to, reduce increase of people come to our place to open fish pond, or we call tambak here. Fish pond is they sell to outside and bring to you, maybe also to your country, but they destruct mangrove for many hectares, too many hectares. So we lost our natural resources, mangrove actually. Then for fish pond, shrimp, and milkfish mostly. Yeah.
Now, looking at the mangroves, this is extremely important for Indonesia and many Southeast Asian countries. How did you become interested and make this your life's career to really try to not only protect but also to expand the mangrove groves? Looks like.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Keep talking, please.
Yeah. My childhood is because we are close to the coastal area, and I see how our people grow and also myself grow, and I try to decide to working with the coastal community because compared to the people in the mainland or in the uphill, the coastal community mostly look at poorer than the mainland community. So that's why I try to working with them to protect the environment of as their source of livelihood, and then try to work with them. Well, try to find how to at least decrease their poverty, and try to find how to protect environment as the source of their livelihoods.
Yeah, it's an incredible work that you're doing, Mr. Dako, in these more remote areas of Indonesia. And so this will certainly be life's work for you and next generations, just like Lisma, who's sitting here in the studio with us. Looking at the publications, I know that you've been trying to distribute information about your work. Why do you see that's important for what you're doing?
So education through mass media or public is very important because at that time we are passing the government policy on not really similar to what we want, because government try to invite people to come and open mangrove, disrupted forest and everything. So we try to have a campaign through mass media, and at the moment we try to advocate to campaign this problem, because year by year our mangrove forest is lost. So campaign is very important inside.
We're going to lose you in just a few seconds, Mr. Dako. What do you see for the growth of your work over the next 5 or 10 years?
I think our government is trying to change the way how we want to protect environment and also increase livelihood of the community. Government is now is open to discuss and compared to
as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind.
Hello.
So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Only you can prevent wildfires. Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask? For a little precipitation!
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe in those 144 different countries, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, products, and of course the people are providing the leadership as we move through the 21st century. And as we add 2 billion new people by 2050 and maybe 12 to 13 billion by the end of the 21st century, how are we going to be able to provide the livelihoods, the infrastructure, the food, the fuel, the fiber, all those things that are needed to have an increased quality of life? And there's someone who's actually is, in a sense, the next generation, but also preparing the next generations. This is Lismawati. She goes by the name of Lismawati Lapasi. She's Environmental Ambassador for the Indonesian Green Action Forum, and also is the founder and director of what's called Triple E, the Eco English Education, and this is near the Nantau Forest area in Indonesia. So, Lisma, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're doing as far as this, the Green Action Forum, this ambassador role that you play, which you're actually doing right now here on Emerald Planet TV, and then also a little bit about Triple E, the Eco English Education.
So actually, I've been doing this Eco English Education since I was on my first year of undergraduate program. I started in 2009, and I work along with some friends who has the same passion as mine. So we teach children in the rural areas, specifically children living nearby the forest, and they're so excited about learning English because it is something really new for them, and they are also at the same time really interested to learn about English and environmental stuff. So we unify the two subjects into one, so they can learn about international language, and also at the same time they learn how to protect their environment. And in 2014, I was selected to be the ambassador of Indonesian Green Action Forum because of that Eco-English education. So there was a selection for becoming an ambassador, and because of that project, the progress that I have been making in that project, so I got selected. I won one of the category of the ambassador. And so I keep doing that Eco-English education that I established along with my friends until right now.
Yeah, I tell you, I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And I was in a program as a youth in what was called 4-H in the United States. And I started out in forestry and conservation were my first two projects when I was just 8 years old. So some of the ages of the people you see in this very room here. But looking at this forest area where you're located, how are the children becoming involved in actually to help protect the forest, and what kind of ideas do they take home with them back to their parents and grandparents and extended family about the importance of protecting the forest?
So what we have been doing in Eco-English education program is we are trying to give the message of environmental issues, environmental protection to the children through by using English. So English here is the thing that is more most interesting to them. So we attracted them by using English. So these children, they learned a lot from us about environmental stuffs, like, for example, how to protect their environment. And so by that, we teach them, so they absorb knowledge from us, and then they brought this knowledge to home, and they help educate the family and friends and also people around them about how to protect the forest itself, which is really important for them.
Now, looking at this classroom, this looks very orderly, but it looked like there's some kind of activity going on in this classroom. But it's interesting because as we look at the ages, you go from very young up to middle school and high school students.
Right.
So what is the unifier? Is the English the unifier, the environment, or is it the combination of the two which really molds and keeps them interested and excited about what's going on?
So it's actually the unification between English and environmental stuffs. So the picture here is one of the programs that we have done in one of the schools nearby the forest. So what we've been doing is we teach them through games and also some of the songs, English songs. So they will be interested by doing that. You know, children love to sing and also to play games.
Now, looking at the kinds of educational activities, it looks like in every one of the photographs that I've seen, there's always adult like yourself and the people that are working with you, and they're really right in the middle of everything. So what kind of knowledge, but also the excitement and also the energy that you're imparting to these young people that you think is carrying over into the classroom, but also into the community?
So actually, I gave them one thing that is very important. I motivated them to volunteer. So these young people like me, the adults, my friends who are coming from the same educational background, which is English, I gave them motivation. Let's do some change, some difference, because we are the agent of change of our place. Let's do something different, something that will make a big change to our place. And they eventually have this passion as mine, and we have been doing these things together because we share the same passions and giving something, even though the small things to our community. You know, the great things comes from this small beginnings.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like the mustard seed, you plant it, and it comes up with a huge bush. But looking at yourself as a teacher within all this, and in your friends and your colleagues from the university getting involved, why did you decide you wanted to do this through education and really, in a sense, practice, but to be actually a teacher to these multiple ages in these schools?
Education is the most powerful thing that I know that will change the mindset of people. You know, whatever you do in that village, in that province, if you don't start from changing the mindset, then there's nothing's gonna change. So I myself decided to work from the side of education to raise the knowledge about environmental protection, environmental issues towards our community, because it's definitely gonna change a lot of things, especially the mindset of the people. So by doing that, we're doing the small things, but we believe that we're gonna change the mindset of our community.
Now, looking at the children, and of course they go home, they discuss this with their parents and the grandparents, because in Indonesia you really have a way of, as far as working in, but it's a two-way street. And so anyway, looking at what's going on, how do you get feedback from the students, get feedback from the community and say, oh, we'd like to learn about this, or this is something that we think our children could benefit from? Or the children say, my parents and grandparents never ever thought about that. Can we learn more about this particular topic? How do you do that two-way flow?
So actually, in every session that we have done, the family itself, they came with the children and they saw the progress of the children, and they were very excited that their children got two knowledges at the same time. So they learned English and they also learned environmental issues, environmental protections and stuff. So they were very excited and they wanted us to come back. So we got the feedback directly from the parents of the children itself at the spot.
Now, you've continued this over a number of years, so it's not like you just did this once and, okay, this was interesting, but we're going to go do other things. What has kept you coming back and coming back and coming back as far as working with the next classes that are coming through the school system?
It's because of my passion deep inside. So I have decided to volunteer to my community. I work for the non-profit organization that I established along with my friends because of the passion. I want to make a change, even though just a small change towards my community. And even though I don't make money out of it, I decided to just go with it because it's my passion. It has nothing to do with money. So I think it's all about the passion because I love my community.
Now, this is something we didn't talk about, but working with your friends and also at the university, I'm sure that the professors and the other teachers are aware of what's going on. What do you think they think about your effort, your outreach from the university, which is the national university located within your province, how that is impacting their perspective of how the university should be working with the local community?
So my professors and lecturers are very proud of what we have done so far, because it's not only me, but there are a lot of alumni from the university who are working with me, along with me. And so they think it's a good idea for them to provide some funds for us. So far, my university gives us fund to make some of eco projects in some parts of our province.
So looking at that, this is something that's very important. So not only are you and your nonprofit organization, but the university is becoming more connected with the community. What do you think is the long-term impact on the university itself by working with the parents and the students at this very young age?
They can take a lot of benefits. For example, there are some spaces in our university which called University Park, and they will take benefit from some of the eco projects that conducting by the university students itself. So this park that owns by the university will keep green because of our action.
That's absolutely incredible. Anyway, this is Lismawati Lapasi. She is the founder and director of EEE Eco English Education as we create the Emerald Planet.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent, like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet and also the Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis looking around the globe, as we say, those 1,000 best practices, technology, services, products, and the people are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we head towards 2050 and we have another 2 billion people on the planet, how are we going to be able to take care of them at the same time to provide all the basic infrastructure, the housing, the education, healthcare, but also to protect the environment. And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who is an expert, international, and has been working in research and policy of what's called climate advisors. Very good title that you have there, Michael. This is Michael Wolosin, and he's the Managing Director of Climate Advisors. And welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sam.
What's Climate Advisors? Tell us a little bit about it, its mission and its vision.
Great. So we are a very small policy and politics shop here in Washington, D.C. We're a consultancy, and we work with some of the biggest foundations and governments in the world who are trying to save our planet, trying to slow and stop climate change, bring about the low emissions future, and protect forests around the world.
So how is the climate change impacting forests, and conversely to that, how are the forests impacting on climate change itself? And what's that balance that you're looking for? Because I think that's part of your policy issues and also the research.
Great question. So we are indeed facing a very dangerous future from climate change right now, and forests have a critical role to play. So most folks don't know that one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions on our planet is not just the power plants, but it's also the forests. We learned a little bit about the burning that was happening on peatlands in Indonesia from Ibu Lisma a little earlier tonight. Together, all of the burning of peatlands and forest destruction around the world is close to 10–12% on balance of emissions. But if you actually add up all of the emissions from forests, it's much larger than that. It's close to 20–25%. Some of that gets sucked back into other healthy forests. So what we see happening is some forests are disappearing and other forests are growing. And so it's a very dynamic process. But together, forests can provide a much larger portion of the climate solution. We can grow the forests that are healthy to suck in carbon dioxide, and we can stop the loss of forests elsewhere. So really, forests are about a quarter of the climate solution, 25% of what we need to do to stop climate change.
One of the predictions was by 2050 that roughly maybe 75–80% of the world's population would be in urban areas. And actually, we found out that already in the United States, we're about 80%. Even a country like Brazil is about 87%. So when you're looking at that, is this opening up every new lands that actually can be used as carbon sumps, or are we actually needing to convert the urban areas into more urban forest?
That's a great question. So what we see happening globally right now is that the hunger of all of the people in those cities is actually what's really changing the landscape out in the rural areas. So in places like Indonesia and Brazil and increasingly in Africa, the third largest location of tropical forests in the world, folks are cutting down the forest to plant crops and to grow cattle. So soybeans, cattle ranching, palm oil, and pulp and paper are the 4 biggest causes of deforestation. And those products are primarily going into the food supply, the tables, the products that the folks in those cities are buying. So even if the trees aren't there in the cities, what used to be the trees, that land, that resource is coming into the cities and feeding that hunger of what you rightly pointed out was a massively growing population.
Looking at this whole thing as far as the developed countries vis-a-vis, and then of course the emerging market nations of Latin America, Southeast Asia, the African continent, looking at that, many people are saying, okay, over 100 years ago you started cutting back on the forest to grow your own society, say in like the United States, Germany, even places like Japan, but now you're asking us to retard our growth and not give the comforts that our own citizens need. How do you strike that balance, and what do you see as this trade-off, or does it need to be more collaboration between the developed nations and the emerging market nations?
Well, I don't think it has to be a trade-off, and I hear this a lot when I talk about deforestation reduction to policymakers in Brazil and Indonesia and Congo, is, well, you guys did it. You did it in the United States many years ago, and we should be able to do it now to grow our economy as well. And there's some truth to that, and I think the balance here that you have to strike is really one of sovereignty, and every country needs to decide for itself the future that it wants. But what we're seeing increasingly is that countries in the developing world feel the threat of climate change. They see the benefits of forests, not just from climate change, but from, as the theme of this show talked about, water cycling, protecting coastal areas by the mangrove forests from storm surges. The forests have many services that they provide to people. And increasingly, these forest country governments themselves are seeing forest protection as critical to their economic future. So in addition to those benefits that folks are getting from the forest, what we also see is that the amount of land that's available that's already degraded, either from poor agricultural practices or slash and burn, or cattle ranches that are just very low productivity in South America, there's a huge opportunity to actually grow production without losing any more forest. So this idea that there's really a trade-off is a false notion. It's really not the case. There's a lot of room to grow those economies in ways that are not going to damage them in the long term from forest loss.
So what you're doing is you're taking marginal or non-productive lands, then you're bringing them back into productivity through maybe planting these in new forest groves, maybe going back to native species. So looking at climate advisors, you're looking at to advise these governments, looking at advising the United Nations, international bodies. So what are you looking at as far as how do we advise these governments that really want to protect their sovereignty, as you said earlier, but at the same time to grow their economies because they have growing populations?
Well, one of the things that we see as a real opportunity is the coming of global climate policy, which is increasingly important and is actually driving change by providing incentives for countries to move to a low emissions development pathway. And what we really need to see is a lot more partnerships between the forest countries and their governments, as well as the governments in the north, the community groups, the indigenous peoples, and critically the companies that are actually buying the products that are causing deforestation. If we can bring these partners together to identify common goals of producing without deforestation and also growing the economy so that people on the land still can make a good income, still can make a living, that set of partners can really work together and change the practices on the ground. So that's what we're really pointing towards, is new kinds of partnerships.
Yeah, well, looking at climate advisors and the work that you're doing, and I think this is something, Mike, that you brought up, which is very cogent to the conversation right now, is how do you allow people to stay in place? Most people feel they have to flee to the cities. You know, we have this mass migration out of the countryside, so you're leaving very old, very young people out in the hinterland, and they really can't manage the land itself. So, and then you have the aging population in places like Western Europe. Now China has a very rapidly aging population. So how do we bring all of this together so that, you know, we're managing it so that the world is getting the resources it needs? We're going to have 2 billion new people whether we want them or not. and we've got these rapidly expanding urban areas. What policies do you think we need to do to make all of this work so everybody has more, not just less?
Well, first I think we actually need to value all of the things that nature provides to us. And that comes from the top, it comes from governments, but it also comes from individual communities. The communities on the ground often see what they get from the forests, from the rivers, from the streams, from the lands around them. But we in the cities don't see what we get. We don't know that the air that we are breathing is clean because the forest is nearby. We don't always know that the rainfall that feeds the crops that we're eating is produced by a healthy forest that's right next to those fields that are growing the wheat. So actually understanding and making part of our economic system all of those values that the forest provides is critical so that our economies are actually driving decisions to protect those forests instead of driving business as usual forest destruction to feed a false hunger for new land that's really going to hurt us in the end.
Looking at people living in the countryside, and many times, instead of being able to go to the cities, as we were just talking about, we like to have them stay in place, but yet they don't see really the benefit from staying there because many times there's not the resources they need, the health care, the education, the basic infrastructure as far as roads and clinics and all that. What do governments need to be doing? And this is what the next question is. How do you involve all these levels of government, local, regional, and national, along with the NGOs and others that really do care about the people that live in these more rural areas?
Well, you have to start with community involvement because those communities do want to stay on their land. They do want to continue the cultures that are so tied to the land that they live on. And if the government is going to try to introduce new solutions or new technologies or even new crops like palm oil in Indonesia, they need to do that in a way that those communities can benefit, not moving them off the land, moving them into the cities against their will often, but rather involving them in the productive growth of those new crops, making sure that they have a market for those crops, making sure that they benefit from all of the services that their stewardship of the land provides. So those local communities need to get the benefit of the land that their land is providing to all of us around the world. And policies are what can do that. Policy is what helps to drive those decisions all the way down to the land.
So you see many governments, and we're going to have to go out on this, but see many governments saying we need to have a hands-off policy, people work it out on their own. Others are saying you have to have strong government policies to drive this so that there's, again, this balance. What do you see for the future over the next 5, 10, 15 years as far as how are we going to make those, not necessarily the trade-offs, but how are we going to have this collaboration to do this?
I think the future really is in companies and governments sending the signals to communities that there is a value in protecting their forest instead of cutting it down.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking at this, the large country of Indonesia that we're talking about right here, Michael, I tell you, it's incredible. And thank you for sharing. This is Michael Wolosin, who is the Managing Director, Research and Policy at Climate Advisors. We really appreciate you being on, Michael. Thank you for being here and sharing with us. And thank you for being with us as we're looking around the globe on a week-to-week basis as we create the Emerald Planet.